All right, guys, so welcome back to Inherent Success Podcast, where this is your guide through self-discovery and healing journey as well. All about transformational stories. It goes from coaching, business, health, and wellness. And today I have my good friend, Lauren Baltimore.
Very close. Balterman.
I already fucked it up.
So close.
It's been a long day. I already messed it up. Guys, I said it 3 times.
She was so close, though. And so many people say Baltimore. And I'm like, no, it's Balterman. It's spelled Balterman.
Balterman. Oh my God, Lauren, I'm so sorry. It's okay. Everyone butchers my last name too, so. But yes, Lauren, welcome to the show. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
So good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our conversation and just to see where everything goes.
Yeah. Oh my God, you guys are in for a treat. Like, we were chatting forever before we started filming, and she's definitely going to be sharing her story. But just to give you guys context of how Lauren and I met. So Lauren was my posing coach when I started my bodybuilding journey and my competition season. And she was just amazing. Just something about her. Like, she has like this glow and like this radiance about her. And she really helped me with my posing. It was for my first show. And I remember I was like so shy and I was like so stiff, like a deer in headlights. And she helped me so much. So that's how we just met, and we've been able to create a beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Lauren, I would love for you to explain a little bit about like what you really do. Like, what is I know you're a business coach, you're a health coach, and you just launched your 3rd business as well.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about it a little bit before we started filming. So if you were to explain to the audience what you do, I would love for you to dive into that.
Absolutely. So present day, I'm a business coach and a personal brand strategist. I built several 6-figure, multi-6-figure businesses before diving into that realm and that niche. So for 13 years, I've been a therapist, and that was, well, I want to say where it all began, but we could even go further back than that.
Yeah. Yes.
But my first business really was my therapy practice, and then I moved into a lot of consulting work. But I was one of those crazy high-achieving women in 2011 that as I was going my last year of graduate school and doing internships and externships and getting a double master's, my heart and one of my other passions was health, wellness, and fitness. So my health and wellness business started that same year when I was graduating. I got a wonderful opportunity. I started working with different clients and became certified in nutrition, personal training, holistic health, and really just had the business for 10 years. And I always say from 2011 to about 2019, 2020, it was like I was personally living 2 lives, right? One was I actually moved away from private practice and moved into, I have 2 masters. So one is clinical psychology and behavioral psychology. The other one is mental health counseling and school counseling. So wanting stability, I actually moved into schools. I went into the education realm and I was a school counselor. I started doing consulting work on the side while I was building supervision clinical hours, which are hours you need for your license. Fun times. And so long story short, I was building up a coaching practice at night and having clients and renting space in the gym and, I'm like kind of a baby entrepreneur, never took it seriously. It was certainly more of like, never took it seriously in terms of a financial thing, took it very seriously with clients. But during the day, that was my job that paid the bills. That was my job that I went to school for. And again, long story, COVID came around in 2020. And in 2020, I actually had moved out of consulting and out of counseling, and I got promoted into like my dream position, which was an executive director. And I was managing a team of over 13 other clinicians, social workers, mental health counselors, doing trainings. it was very stressful it was COVID, education system went online. It was chaos, and I was pregnant. Unplanned pregnancy, and the world was shutting down, right? So I was a director. We moved everything from in-person to online, and I had my health coaching practice or business, which was brick and mortar too. And I had to fully move that online. In a matter of a week, I was like, great, we're going to move that online. So we did that. And right then and there, I knew I could no longer have two separate passions. I could not be doing mental health during the day and physical health at night. So then there is so much more to the story. But that was the very beginning part of where it was.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, I always say this, success, you have like you go through different avenues until you figure out like what's your truest calling and your purpose. Like you go through one road and you're like, oh, okay, I like this. And you're in that vehicle for a long time. And then the vehicle crashes and you're like, okay, this is not my path.
Yes.
This is going to be my path.
Yes.
And it's always those pivotal moments that make you realize, okay, like, this is not my calling. I get to let that go. I get to close that chapter and I can go over here. And this feels more in alignment. And sometimes that's your best work.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting, because I always say to people like, okay, don't put yourself in a box, right? And I remember so distinctly that when I was counseling, when I was consulting, and then when I was a director leading other people, I loved it. Like if someone would have asked me in that time, like, are you living at a passion and all these things? And like, I wholeheartedly loved it. There was like this much of me that was like, okay, but is this it? And I knew that it wasn't it, right? And then at night or, Saturday and Sunday when I had all my clients, I knew that things couldn't be in a box. I knew that it wasn't just mental health and physical health. Like I started really talking to my clients because I had clients who stayed with me for years. They already lost the weight. They got in the best shape of their life, their confidence, their sex life, like all the things that they wanted on this journey. And I'm like, well, why are you still here? Like I love you, but why are you still here? And they're like, Lauren, you're so much more than, the health. You're so much more than training. They're like, you're our life coach. And at that point I was like, I am a therapist. I was like, what's life coaching, And I let that sit in and I let it marinate for such a long time. And I think there was some point that I was like, there is no one distinct here and one distinct there. And I really let that like anchor in to, during the day, I am talking about physical health. During the night, of course, I'm talking about mental health and your mindset and all these different things. And that's what ultimately allowed me to have the self-belief to leave stability. I was making way over six figures. I had a 401k, I had a wonderful pension, I had health benefits, had everything. I had a great maternity leave, right? All the things. And it was this little bit. I could have stayed there. I could have stayed there for the rest of my life because it was like this little bit that was like, no, you are meant for so much more. And when I finally decided that what is that next step, that's when I went online and really built my health coaching practice. But my original messaging and how I branded myself was master your mind to master your body. And I was just like, it's it. Like it's all encompassing, right? And again, it was like you nailed it, Emma. It was like, you stay in one vehicle and then you evolve, right? Like you get to evolve. And I did that. I did that for about a year consistently, but I had built that business fully online. I say from zero, but less than 1K. It was like my nails, and that kind of stuff. And I went from like 1K hitting the six-figure mark in 9 months. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm meant for more.
It's amazing.
And I said it again to myself, and can I curse here?
Yeah,
I was going to say, I said, shit got real. So that's when shit got real, because when I had moved brick and mortar and all the things and put in my notice from corporate, a very big part of my story is 2020, like I was saying, life was chaotic in New York. And my husband had lost both of his jobs. We had a newborn baby. We had moved in to my parents' house that was, I love them, very middle class. We lived in their attic. It was a finished attic. And I'm sitting here being like, what the hell are we going to do? That was the preface of building my online business, okay? Taking it from 0 to 1K to 100K. And in those moments, I was like, we're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be in New York. I'm evolving. The family is evolving. And it was very much, my decision to say, what's next? And that's when we found Florida and we up and moved. So like, talk about a lot of change. We moved to Florida, didn't have family, didn't have support, had a newborn. I always joke that I built.
And this was in COVID.
This was in COVID. I always joke. I put a post in my Facebook group today that I built a business with the baby on my boob. That is the truth, that's what's possible, when you really believe and you really are going after everything that you desire. So it was going up a ladder, right? Of what you are showing. I always said to myself, okay, you're meant for more, go prove it to yourself. You're meant for more. What is your next level, Lauren, right? Literally would look in the mirror and I would say, well, what's that next level? So after a year of the health coaching business, I had that feeling. And I was like, oh, well, what's next, right? And that was where I use the term I floundered, because I was like, well, what do I really want to be doing, right? I had that if anyone understands the entrepreneurial, existential, what am I doing and what am I meant for and all the things.
What's my purpose?
Yeah, as much as I loved health, and I will always love health, right? I was like, nope, what's that next step? And for about a year, I did a lot of mindset coaching. I mean, I love school. I have a lot of titles. I did performance coaching and master life coaching and neuro-linguistic programming and all of these things that are great. But it's nothing landed as much as I wanted to. I had incredible clients, incredible transformations and all these things. And, we talked about childhood trauma and self-sabotage and loved every second. But when you have that feeling, when you have that feeling that you're like, it's just not it yet. It's just not it yet, and it was 60,
this is not it, yeah.
Right, it was 60%, 70%, and that is when it all clicked. That is bringing it back to full circle when I really ran a program, and I've always known my woman. I work a lot with women. I work with some men, but I work with a lot of women, male or female. It's very high achieving, very overachieving. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I am, whatever, I'm going to defy the odds, right? And these people burn themselves into the ground. And I ran this beautiful, beautiful burnout program. It was called Revive and Thrive. And in that program, more than half the people in there were business owners. And while I ran the program, which was so much about personal growth and personal elevation and real internal transformation, their businesses skyrocketed, double the amount of clients coming in, double the monthly revenue, just these wild changes. And I get goosebumps talking about it because I always knew that to be true, but I didn't necessarily know how to market it. I didn't know the pieces of the puzzle quite yet. And when I saw how powerful the work was, I said, well, we got to figure this out. I hired the hands down greatest marketers in the entire world and learned from them. And I was like, we're going to be a business coach. We're going to be a business coach. I mean, I really leaned into, what did I do? What did I do over the past 3 years that built my business? And I was like, it's a personal brand. I have clients, I have client retention, they stay with me because it's a brand. They see my journey. I always say, you evolve as a human. That's why you need a personal brand. You get to evolve. And that's where we are with business coaching and personal branding.
I love that. No, that's beautifully said. I think the biggest takeaway from everything that you shared is your calling. And I know that feeling because I've felt that before. my first business venture, I was like in an MLM company, and I was a coach, and I did online coaching, I did personal training. I used to run my own boot camps. I was out of a nutrition club, and I thought that was it.
Yeah.
Like I thought that this was my thing.
Yeah.
This is I get to the top of the mountain.
Yep.
This is my home. This is what I'm doing. And after failing over and over and over again, there were so many highs and there were a lot of lows, and just continuing to like go through the trenches and like figuring out like, why is this not working? And I felt like you're meant for something else.
Yes.
Sometimes people just really like stay no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
In that specific calling or whatever they're doing, but that work that they're doing, and they don't want to like branch out on other things.
Scary.
And I did that for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Like part-time, full-time, like it was just like I was in it, and something kept telling me like, Emma, you're meant for more.
Yep.
You're meant for more. And sometimes it's hard to just let that go because one of scarcity, like I don't want to do anything new. Like this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
But then when you let go of that and you go through another way, like a new way, that's how you figure out your calling, like your truest purpose.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm so happy that I was able to close that chapter, because I had to really tell myself, Emma, you have a purpose, but this is not it.
100%. 100%. When I first started coaching, like there was such a high percentage of me that was like, I love health. And like I said, I will always love health. But it was during a time when like I had built that business, and then I was thinking to myself, I didn't know the term multi-passionate entrepreneur. Like you don't know what you don't know, right? And someone had said it to me. They're just like, Lauren, for the things you do, for the life experience, for everything you bring to the table, I see you as someone who has a business here and a business there. And like, mind you, I didn't grow up in a way that I thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was not one of those kids who was like selling the freaking, lemonade stand. Like that wasn't me. To even hear that from someone, I was like, wow, yeah, like you nailed that, and it is so hard, like you were saying, to take that leap when something is working. I remember when I told my business partner that we had started a Facebook group, and he was, I basically said to him, like, it's not going to be health focused. And he was like, well, what do you mean? Like, master your mind to master your body. Like, it works, and we have this great business. And I was like, no, like, we're going to keep this business. I'm like, but we're going to start something else. And he like started hearing me talk, and he's like, well, I see your passion. He's an incredible human. And he was asking me all these questions, and like, ultimately he's like, it's your decision, But what happened was like the next couple of months, like I said, it was like that floundering. I mean, clients just, I have still to this day, a great referral base. I have a gynecologist in New York who refers. People were like coming in. It was consistent. And it went from consistency then in, from a financial place to having more than a month of like no one coming in, like no one for mindset coaching, and what am I doing, and how am I making this change, and should I retreat back, and like a lot of nights where I just wanted to curl up in a ball and say, don't do it, right? Don't do it. Just go back to what works. I'm not a huge crier, but like when the tears come, they're supposed to come. And as a therapist, I'm like, we let them out. And there were a lot of nights that I was like, oh, this is why and when people say entrepreneurship is hard, And I always go back to listening to that little voice inside of you, And when you are so in tune to that little voice that's like, okay, well, are you going to go to your future self, or are you going to retreat back, right? And like retreating back would have been keeping myself in that one box. And I was like, well, there's just no way, right?
That's where the powerful story comes. That's where you get to decide, like, okay, how can this be extremely powerful for me?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of story can I create from this in such a beautiful way, right? Because people want to avoid that. And a lot of people don't take risks, and they're not willing to do that thing that they've always wanted to do, or create that thing that they've always wanted to create, because of those moments, the hard times. And it's in those hard times where like you really blossom. It's what you do in those hard times. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing. It just means that you're reaching the next level.
Yep.
The way that I see that is I see it like this, and this is what I'm currently going through right now. You're like, I'm committed. I'm ready to do this shit. And the universe is just like, oh yeah, here you go.
Yep.
Let me just sprinkle a little challenge for you. Oh, here's another challenge.
Yep.
Here's something else. Like it sounds so cliche, but it's so true because you're literally giving out the energy of like, I'm committed. I'm doing this. And then it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. So a lot of people are not willing to go through those tough times in order to achieve the things that they want.
Yeah.
But then what's on the other side, and people don't realize it, is just huge transformation. It's something so beautiful.
Yeah.
What's on the other side of fear? What's on the other side of like falling down and getting back up again?
Yep.
All of that is just so beautiful.
Yep. Oh my gosh. So as you were just speaking, I'm like, yes, that is 100%, resonates with me so much. Present day, I always say the success of your business is directly correlated to your relationship with fear. Your relationship with fear. And when you really lean in and acknowledge that there is no failure, like stop being so afraid of failure, that fear of failure, like failure is solely just feedback. No failure, just feedback. And every time, and still to this day, obviously we're going to have some bumps in the road and things are going to happen as you grow. Every time you grow, things get scary and challenging and there are fears that come up. Present day, I know for me, when I'm very fearful, the second that comes in, I will also then remind myself like, great, here's your growth. Right? Like that's that cognitive reframe that it's like, well, your growth is coming, right?
Yeah.
Like be able to sit in
Like,
that.
what can I learn from this?
Yes. And be able to really sit in that discomfort, right?
Yeah. Transformation is extremely painful. It's extremely painful, and you get to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
That way in those moments, it just also allows you to be equipped to handle anything else that comes into your life. Like, okay, this is happening. Like, I got this.
Yeah.
I was able to handle other things before. I was able to reinvent my life before. I can do it again.
Oh, yeah.
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 So it really does build character, and you're able to blossom from all of those moments. Like that's personally me. Like that's how I see it. I would love for you to share, like, how did you get into all of this? Like, did you grow up in an environment of like, health? Did you, like, how were your parents when you were growing up? Like, what was your environment growing up?
Yeah. So,
all right, guys, we'll get right back into the episode. I just wanted to take a quick break here to share with you guys that I do not make any money on this podcast. My goal and my purpose with Inherent Success is to be that guide for individuals in their self-discovery journey. So if you found any value in this episode, make sure to like, to subscribe. And if you know anyone that could benefit from the episode or the podcast overall, you can share with a friend as well. Now, let's get back into it.
I just shared this within my Facebook group. It's definitely, very much part of my brand in terms of, I'll go way back, but my dad was an alcoholic who abused my mother. And, my parents had me really young. I grew up, they, had gotten divorced. I have a younger brother. The psychologist in me was always like, oh, you were parentified, which means you grew up, you kind of lost a little bit of your childhood, meaning like you took care of a lot of other people. And even in school, when I was learning about that, I was like, oh yes, that was me, right? I was that mature kid, but due to my childhood and the environment, I have a very, very loving family, but my mom is amazing, huge cheerleader, I love her to pieces. But our parents do the best they can with the resources that they have, right? And I know for me, growing up, there was chaos, and I internalized that with the tools that I had as a child and found my own calm, my own safety, and my own security in two ways. One was like having control, and the other one was knowing that like I depend on me. Like I do it for me. because I'm afraid. Is anyone else going to show up? Is mom, doing whatever? Is she has to take care of younger brother, right? And growing up, that really pushed me to have a really hard time asking for help. So here I was, this really high achieving individual, because I was a bit of a control freak, right? Everything had to be a certain way, very structured. And that led me really into a lot of perfectionism,
God.
And so you have a young girl, right? There I was, who couldn't ask for help, kind of stayed within. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do it all. And we're going to do it all. We're going to do it all.
I'm laughing because that's yeah.
Yeah, right?
I'm the same way. Yeah.
So the reason I went there, and to bring it back to health, was due to all of these behaviors and tendencies. I developed, one, it was disoriented eating habits. So many disoriented eating habits, really young. So psychologically and clinically speaking, much younger than when most eating disorders are diagnosed. So it was disoriented eating habits, chewing and spitting, binge eating. At that point, it was a full-blown eating disorder. And by the age of 10, 11, it was diagnosed. It was diagnosed not otherwise specified. So an eating disorder where it's not just anorexia, right? It's basically meaning that you do all these types of things to purge of different foods. So that is a whole story in amongst itself. But, I had a therapist at the time because my wonderful mother was like, I'm going to help you. Where's this coming from? Again, she didn't know what to do with it, right? Mm-hmm. Great, I'm going to bring you to someone who can maybe help you. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be helped. I did not want to be helped. I was like, it is my way. This brings me peace. I am good. I'm going to do it. And I had a therapist who said to me, I can't help you. You're never going to be helped. And that stuck with me so much. It was about 6 months later. I was in high school at the time, maybe a little further along in my timeline. And it was about ninth grade. I woke up in the bathroom, my high school bathroom, after passing out on the floor due to lack of nutrients and, having no energy and being dehydrated. And another big part of that was body image and lack thereof positive body image and self-love. And I woke up on the bathroom floor and was like, Lauren, I literally was like, you are so powerful. You are so disciplined. You have all of these things within you and you are using it for destruction. I remember saying to myself, I finally met myself in the mirror and I was like, so are you going to go down the path for the rest of your life of just throwing away? I knew there was this part of me that was amazing. I knew that, right? Mm-hmm. I was a straight A student and, AP honors classes and, but good friends, there was so much of me that I could look in the mirror, right? And I could say, damn, you're a great friend. You have a big heart and all these things. And there was this whole other part of me that was that deep, dark demon that just created that entire cloud that was, are you gonna let that cloud take over, mm-hmm. or are you gonna go in a different direction? And I had a high school sweetheart at the time, and I called him into the guidance counselor's office, and I was like, so we're gonna change this whole ship, And I called my mom, and I was like, I want a therapist. I want to get help. I want to really heal. I went into complete recovery. And about a year later, I had said to my mom, something that would help me so much through this healing process, because I really had the mindset portion through therapy. I said, I was doing so many bad things for my body. I was taking laxatives. I was taking water pills. It was bad news. And I said, I want to learn. I want to learn about health. I want to know everything about what makes my body good and what can help it. And again, my wonderful, loving mother was like, great. At that point, I had gotten a personal trainer, mm-hmm. and in a very healthy manner. I found back then, it wasn't a holistic approach. I don't even think they were technically using those words. And that was throughout high school. And then in college, that was really when I was like, cool, I'm in the gym. I know what I'm doing. I learned about nutrition. So that really then led me to become certified and do all the things after all of that.
Wow. And where do you think that came from? Like that, because you know, it's easy to judge from the outside, right?
Yeah.
Like you just never know what someone's going through.
Yep.
You can go to school and you can look at this person and they're like, they have straight A's and they have all their life together, even in the most comfortable like situations that kids are going through, like in a wealthy family, all these things, but you just never know what they're going through internally. Like, where do you think all of this body image stuff came from? I mean, how old are you?
Right now?
Yeah.
37.
37? Okay, so around that time, I'm sure it was a different type of era in the sense of like the skinny and like the thin, like you watch Friends and like it's just like the thin look, the thin look. So where do you think that came from?
Yeah. I mean, environment is so important, you know, and, you know, you asked, I think one of your original questions was like,
sorry, I asked you,
no,
like 37.
I was like, wait, now or then? I'm like, my birthday's coming up in a couple of weeks.
No, you look good. Okay, you look good.
So yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very much like an Italian family, you know, so food was definitely a big thing. Growing up, my family definitely, I mean, my grandma, my aunts, and all the things. And yes, everyone always talked about how they looked and looking in the mirror. I don't think that there was anyone that was like, I'm so beautiful and I'm so gorgeous. I definitely did not, you know, have that in my life. I know for me though, it was so much more of the control piece. It was whenever things got chaotic, food was something that I could control. You know, I also, circling back to like body image, and this is like a different route. I am a blended family. So I have 3 stepsisters and 3 stepsisters who are very, very different than I am, just morally, ethically, the way they look. And growing up, they would actually tease me. They would tease me in terms of like, oh, you know, you have freckles, or, you know, oh, that boy wasn't looking at you, and like all these things. So, you know, throughout, if you can kind of like visualize this like storm of all these things from early childhood, those were the messages that I was getting, right? So it was chaos. It was who's going to show up for me emotionally and mentally. And it was like, only you, Lauren, like only you, like you're going to show up for you, right? And then I had these other girls, you know, in my life essentially being like, you're not beautiful, like you're ugly, right? Like if we just are being really blunt. So I was being sent these messages time and time again, to the point where I was just like, it was, you know, the opposite of self-love. It was looking in the mirror and being like, well, I don't like this. And then saying to myself, okay, well, if you don't like something, well, then you can change it. And then that was the control piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, growing up can be very challenging, especially how you said, like, it's more of like your environment, like your influence, like it can be from your family, even like friends in school. Like I'll just share a quick story about myself. Like it's, you know, once you're born, you have like this joy and this love and this shine and sparkle, and like you dream big and you do things and you're like so creative and you don't care what people think. And then as you get older, your shine and your sparkle starts to dim because people start putting you down, like, no, you can't do that, no, don't do that, oh, you look a certain way, and then it starts fucking with you and you start creating this whole story about yourself. You know, my whole life until I was like 12 years old, I had so much joy. And I was always like happy and dancing, even though my house was a fucking mess and destruction all the time. And it was so unhealthy. What I would always do, I would be in my room and I would like play Disney movies and I would sing. And I loved to sing and I loved to dance. And like, I was always like this little girl that always went for things. And then as I got older, like going into middle school, I remember I was 12, like going into middle school, I was a dancer, I was a cheerleader. And then people started noticing me, and then the cool kids started noticing me, and then I started like, I thought I was a nerd because I was also in band too. So I would like hide my pom-poms in my book bag, and I would hide my flute in my
Yep.
book bag.
And you didn't know which one to be.
And I didn't know which one to be.
Yeah.
And me and my sister were like that, you
Yeah.
know? And then as I got older, I just like stopped doing all of that. Like it got to the point like I was in dance, and I got to the point where I was like choreographing like the whole team, me and my sister, and I would just get in trouble, and they're like, Emma, you know, you have so much potential, like what is wrong? And it ultimately came down to like not being loved and seen and supported at home. So I was trying so hard. So it's like, it's different, but it's like it's similar ways.
Yeah.
You know, as you grow up, like your shine and your sparkle goes away because of your environment and all these stories that people tell you, and you start believing it.
Yes, absolutely. It always comes back to your belief system, 100%.
Your programming.
Yeah, yeah. And your belief system, your programming, it's so much of what other people are saying to you and how you internalize that, the stories that you really gain, you know, from all of that, from people saying, yes, do this, no, don't do this, you know, dim down, be quiet, you know, all of these different things. It plays such a role.
And when you're growing up, you just want to be seen. Like when you're a kid, I think up to like when you're a teenager, I think as an adult too, like you still have that little child, that inner child inside of you saying like, love me, see me, I want to be seen, I want to be heard.
Yeah.
So it's very, I mean, we can go hours about that, but it's very, that topic is very interesting. And, you know, I see my son, and like you see your, you know, you have a daughter and you have a child, and we'll talk a little bit more about motherhood too, because I would love to touch that topic.
Yeah.
You know, us as parents, we want the best for our kids, and we are responsible for that, creating that environment, you know?
Yeah.
And something that I always teach my son is just like, I'm like, if there's one thing that you can learn from me, just be kind, be a good human.
Yeah.
Be a good human and be yourself, your most authentic self, because it's better to be loved for who you are than loved for who you're not.
Yeah.
He had some troubles like in starting middle school and stuff like that. And now he understands that.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because we had a conversation last week about this. And I asked him, like, I'm like, if you can change something, or like, what would you tell your younger self? And he said, just to be yourself.
Yeah.
And be authentic and not care what people think about you.
Yeah.
Like, and love yourself more.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful to hear.
That is so beautiful.
It was so cute.
That's such a testament to you and your role as a mom.
Thank you.
You know, when people, like you just used the phrase, right? Like, be authentic. And, you know, I definitely, in the online space, see it all the time, right? Like, be authentic in your messaging, be authentic in your marketing, right? And it was so interesting as you said that. I'm like, okay, where is Emma going to go right now? And I know you know so deeply what that means. And I was like, okay, how did she really translate that, you know, to your son? Because what I really find is people say it, right? Oh, be authentic. But I will literally, like so many of the women that I work with, if I ask them, like, well, who are you? What do you do? What do you love? Like, what are your values? What do you believe in? That's what being authentic really is.
Right.
So many people can't fill in those blanks. They're like, well, this, that, you know? And the fact that you were absolutely able to show and translate all of that to your son, he knows who he is, you know, which is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because as they get older, you want them to like fly. I always say this joke. I'm like, he's flapping his wings, but I don't want him to fly yet.
Yes.
But now, like, I get to just let him do his thing and let him be a boy and let him experience things. Because sometimes, like, yes, you want them to like do the right thing all the time, but at the end of the day, they are their own person, and they're gonna have to learn things themselves. So that's important to me because I mean, I grew up learning everything myself. I didn't really have a role model growing up. I had like my older sister, but like as far as like a mother and a father, not really. I had to learn everything the hard way, like really hard way. And now, like in my 30s, that's when everything is clicking.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Everyone has their journey. Everyone has their process. But with kids, they get to just learn themselves, you know? Like, but there's also like a healthy balance of like, okay, you can let them experience things, but also don't let them like
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, everything you're talking about, right? This is why and how inner child work is so powerful. You know, I have a lot of women that come to me in the therapy space, and they're kind of like older 20s, like upper 20s, and they basically, you know, a little bit, I'll give social media credit, right? Where they're like, oh, I saw blah, blah, blah on TikTok, you know, but they basically come in like to my office and they're, you know, say something along the lines of like, I want to better myself before I become a mom. Right. And it's like one of the most beautiful things because they know what they've been through. They have acknowledged through reading whatever on social media that they're like, okay, I have possibly had trauma. Like there are things that I want to work through because I don't want to pass that on. Right. I don't want to pass that on to my child, which is incredible. And so much of that work. Right. And you know this from being a parent, it's regulating your nervous system. It's understanding your inner child, right? When you are a parent, you are going to be so triggered. There are going to be things that happen that go right back to your own childhood, right?
Girl.
Like whether we believe it in that moment or not.
Yes. No, 100%. I feel like a lot of times, because, you know, it's funny, like I say this, like, you know, I'm currently going through like a leadership program and I'm going through this process and it's like this 90-day thing. It's been 90 days, but it's been extended. Long story for another time. But I'm learning a lot of things about myself and I'm learning a lot about like certain things that trigger me.
Yeah.
And there are some things like with my son that I'm like, personal development sometimes goes out the window. Like everything that I've learned, all the tools, like I just... Yeah. And then like I'm just like mom mode. But it's true, they do trigger you, they bring out the best of you. And you know what? And I don't know if you agree or not, but like just to get your insight on it, hearing you say that response of like, oh, I have to work on myself first before I have a child.
Yeah.
The work is never going to be done.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime project. It's something that you're always going to be consistently working on. Yes, you can, that's amazing. You can heal, you can, you know, address certain traumas and things 100%. Like that. However, it's a constant cycle of like, okay, what more can I learn about myself and how can I continue to grow? Yeah. Because you're always going to be triggered. You're always going to be triggered no matter what. It's never going to go away. That little voice is never going to go away.
It's how you respond to them.
It's how you respond to them, exactly. And to me, I think even though I had my son at a very young age, I had him when I was 18. Yeah. I'm grateful because it taught me a lot. Yeah. And even though I wasn't ready, it's made me into the woman that I am today. And there's no perfect manual for being a parent. No. Like, and there's no such thing as a perfect parent. No. Like, we're all learning about this. Like, it is... Motherhood is a different kind of hood. Like it's
amen.
It's a different kind of hood. Like it's just it's so different. And until you become a parent, it's hard to explain because everyone's so different and it's different experiences. But I would also love for you to explain a little bit about, you know, yes, being a mother during the time of you starting your business, because I also hear this a lot too. Is like, oh, I can't work out because I have kids. Yeah. I can't start my business because I have children. Yes. I can't do this because my kids stopped me. And I share this too because my mom, and I love her, she did the best that she could with what she had and what she knew at the time. Yeah. But her thing was always, you know, we had our healing conversation already, but her story was, I didn't get to create my life because I decided to be a mom and I decided to have you. So what are your thoughts on, you know, mothers currently listening right now? Yeah. If, you know, like as to working on themselves and starting that business or just putting themselves first. Yeah. Because it's important to put yourself first and work on yourself. That way you can be, you know, good for everyone else. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start this off by saying you can do both, okay? You can do both. I will preach that from the rooftops. That is a hill that I will die on. You can be not only a mom, but a present, incredible mom, and own a business, a thriving, successful business where you are a CEO boss babe. It really always comes back to your belief and your identity, right? So I know, like, when I started my business, I was fortunate enough to have so many experiences, like the eating disorder, like all the things that I had gone through, that built so much self-belief that I literally would say, you're gonna do both. Like, you're gonna figure it out, right? I think not everyone is there, right? Not everyone starts in that place. Maybe people did grow up in a family that had a mother. It was like, you have to pick one or the other. But if you want to do both of those things, you need to start building that self-belief. You need to start building those neural pathways. You need to start showing yourself, gathering that proof and that data, right? Like, I can sit here and say like, oh, I had 100% conviction. Like, no, when I started, I was just like, well, I believe it. I needed to go gather that proof, right? I need to go do the things and really show myself that that was possible. I mean, my business hit, 10K months, this magical number in the online space. But I remember doing that and still being, when my daughter was an infant at that point and being like, holy shit, like I did it. Like I did it,
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I got to that place and I was just like, oh, see, I knew I could. It was like, great. There's that block. You know what I mean? It's like sandbags where you have sandbags over here where it's like, oh, I'm not really sure. And then you have that other place and spot. And every time you can do something, every time that you can find support to go to a networking event, right? Every time that you can say, I'm going to go build an email sequence while my child is napping, right? You're going to take that sandbag and you're going to put it over to the other side. And then such a huge thing that I, will practice and preach and explain and teach is every time when you are building a new belief, when you're moving those sandbags, you need to look back, right? So when I was first starting my business, I remember every single night before I went to bed, I said, what proof did I give myself today? What proof, what data and information did I give myself? And even on those nights, no one is perfect. There is no perfect. The recovering perfectionist will say that, right? I will say, part of me, my old programming was like, oh, well, you wanted to build your whole entire sales page and you didn't get the whole thing done, right? And I could have chosen in that moment to say like, see, you can't do it. And I was like, no. You got 70% of that sales page done. Okay. So like that, right? When is the next time that you're going to get it done? Great. You're going to call in a babysitter. You're going to get that done. You're going to do a babysitter for an hour, right? Pay someone for 1 hour and you're going to finish that because where there's a will, there's a way.
I love that. No, it's true. It's like, yes, look back at what you were able to accomplish so far, but also like tell yourself, okay, what can I do today to get me closer to that goal?
Yes. And then as a mom, I cannot say this enough. Like that was truly for me, motherhood was where I really moved into so much self-acceptance, right? Of being this high achieving, overachieving, like my whole entire life. Like I had a goal, it was going to get done. It was happening, right? Motherhood will rock you, right? It will rock you in the sense of like, it's not just you anymore. It's not just you. You can have both. You just have to be creative. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah, and if it's important, you make it work.
You make it work, right? Like I remember so many times where I wanted to do something and I was like, okay, well, it's not going to happen the exact way I want it to because I have a bottle or a boob or this or that. And like, she didn't nap when I thought she was going to, like, I've always been a highly structured individual with time blocking. And my daughter was just like, ha ha ha, like, we're gonna toss that out for a little while, you know?
You're like on their time.
Yeah. And like you just learn this whole different level of self-acceptance, right? And I know that like for me, it wasn't like I was succumbing to, okay, self-acceptance, like nothing's going to happen. It's just self-acceptance that things may look and feel different. Like I said, it couldn't have been the old Lauren way. It was, well, I'm going to do this during a different time. I remember when I started my business, I will fully say, like, I was working at 4 a.m. like 4 a.m. I'd wake her up at whatever 2 a.m. feeding, and we'd do a bottle, and I would just stay up, and that was the way we did it, because again, we knew where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. And it just comes down to like that temporary sacrifice for a long-term result.
Yes. That's where bodybuilding came in, right?
Yeah.
How much does bodybuilding teach you, right? We were like, where there's a will, there's a way, 100%.
Yeah, you can make it work. And like, I think a lot of times, like when mothers say, like, shame other mothers for like, oh, it's nice for you to say, like, you have all this time to work out and this and that. I have 5 children and this and that. And then like, you see, it's funny, like I see the comments and I just enjoy it, because it's just like, you see other moms that, I'll never forget, I saw a comment, there was some, I don't know if you watch, Adam and Ashley's podcast.
Yes.
So there were
Bikini in the Brain.
Bikini in the Brain.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one show where they were talking about, it was just very interesting, but they were talking about like having time, right? Mm-hmm. To like meal prep and work out and take care of your body. Yeah. And I loved how she put it. She was like, if you're not ready to do it, it just means it's not your time, but don't say that you don't have time.
Yes.
Because if it's important to you, you'll make time for it. Mm-hmm. And I loved all the comments, and I was reading them. One of them said, I'm a surgeon and I have 3 kids and I did a competition and I work out and I meal prep.
Yeah.
If it's important to you, you make time.
Yeah. That, again, I think it's just like the clinician in me, right? It's always going to come back to like how much you believe in like what's possible and what can be done. Yeah. But like, I have a present day client, she has 4 kids, she works in a hospital. And I remember like when we first started working together, and we do some therapy sessions and we do health, she is on her own health journey, and her husband is a business owner. So, we go there, but I remember when we first started, her biggest thing was, I don't have time. I never have time. All the kids have extracurriculars and soccer and basketball and all the things. But of course, when we unraveled, it's just a smokescreen. Time, not having time. Listen, I get like a hustle bustle life. I am from New York, fully get it, but it is a choice and it is a smokescreen. Mm-hmm. And when we really peeled back the onion and the layers, she was so scared of what her husband was going to say, what her kids were going to say, when and if she started showing up for her. So instead, it was a self-worth and a self-confidence issue. Instead of having that worth and confidence within self-esteem within her to say, I'm doing this for me. Like, how can you help me? Before she, didn't have any of those tools, it was so much easier to say, I just don't have time. Right?
Yeah, to like avoid it.
Yeah, so we had to work on her confidence, her self-esteem, her communication, right? The ability to ask for help. And then when she did those things, now she freaking goes to Pilates 5 times a week, and she figured it out. Her lifestyle hasn't changed, as she internally figured it out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately what it comes down to, when you're making a change and you have children, you have a family, you're doing a change, something for yourself, you just can like sit everyone down and be like, hey, let's have a little family meeting.
Yes.
Like, I love you guys. I do a lot for you guys. Mm-hmm. Now mommy gets to take care of herself.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I did with the bodybuilding thing. Yeah. Even like right now, like going through the podcasting and this new job and like Leadership Academy. And like, it's right now I'm in a transformational season, right? Yep. Like these next 90 days until the end of the year. And like with bodybuilding, I had to sit both of them down and I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Yep. It's going to require a lot of my time. I'm really excited about it, and like for once I want to do something for me. Yeah. And that was what I did, and I literally made it work. I would wake up Monday through Friday 3:30 so I can get cardio, workout, posing done. Yep. And then I would work all day, and then I would meal prep every Sunday. Like it was non-negotiable. It was like super repetitive, but that's what I did the entire time.
Structure equals freedom.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just like when people say I don't have time, it's because 1, they're not ready for change. Mm-hmm. Because there's always time. Oh, yeah. And 2, they're just, it sounds like what your client was saying was like just being very avoidant.
Yeah. She didn't believe in herself, so the self-sabotage behavior was avoidance. Yeah, self-handicapping, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I loved everything that you said, and we can talk about this for like hours. We literally can, but no, I loved that. So I loved everything that you said so much about, with when it correlates with motherhood and like putting yourself first. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Putting yourself first. 'Cause if you're not good, your health is not good, and if you're not happy and you're not fulfilled, like everything around you is not gonna be good. Like that's how I see it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you want to be able to nurture your children and like be a good wife and all these things, you have to take care of yourself first.
100%, 100%. Whether you're a mom, you're building a business, I mean, I literally say it every single day. You cannot pour from not even an empty cup, as people say, like you can't pour effectively through a cup that is this much full. Like even if it's this much, we want it to be higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I'm working on too. Sometimes I still pour and there's nothing coming out.
Yeah.
I try to get the last drop, you know?
Yeah, the last drop.
The last
The last drop is just as good as like the one on the top too. Just saying.
I like that. Man, Lauren, this is such a good conversation. I'm so happy to have you on. And I just have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So this is a question that I always ask all of my guests, and it's interesting because I always receive a different answer. But what does inherent success mean to you?
Oh my goodness. So I was actually thinking about this on my drive coming to do the podcast. I love the title so much. To me, it resonates with me so very much because it goes back to self-belief, knowing, you know, you're gonna do whatever it takes. If you have everyone's vision and definition of success is going to be different. If you don't know what that definition is, figure it out. But when you have that definition, if you can reverse engineer and be in true alignment with what you really want to do, and then every single day be taking small steps, small actions, moving to that, knowing that I always say before you have to be her before you become her. And when you stay in that energy, it's just, when I was literally driving here, I was like, inherent success. And to me, I was just like, of course you're going to be successful. Like, of course it's happening. Building into that and then having habits and routines and that belief consistently, that's all going to happen.
I love that. That was so beautiful. Oh, mic drop. If I had a mic. So beautiful. Lauren, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And where can people find you?
Yeah, I would love for everyone. I have a free Facebook group for overachieving and high achieving entrepreneurs, small business owners. It is almost at 3K, almost 3,000 members. The name of the Facebook group is Empowered Wholeness, where you can find me, Lauren Balterman, on Facebook, and I will guide you over there.
Beautiful. And I'll add all of her information in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Lauren, once again. So beautiful. Your story is so powerful. This was a really good episode. And if you guys found any value in this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend that can also find value from it as well. And also make sure to hit the notification and you'll be notified when the next episode will be uploaded. So thank you. Stay tuned.